time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Come early to the floor of the House. It's cold enough, I guess, for Groundhog Day, but this will be the 10th time in the last 4 years that the House of Representatives has moved this bill with the assertion that somehow it leads us to energy independence, energy security, lower prices at the pump. Well, the reality is a Canadian corporation is going to build a pipeline from Canada to Texas. They are going to be exempt from paying into the oil spill liability trust fund, unlike most other projects in this country because of a stupid ruling by the IRS, but that's nothing new regarding tar sands. So they'll be exempt from paying into that. So if this thing bursts, there's an accident, the taxpayers of the United States get the bill, not the taxpayers of Canada. They don't get the bill. Taxpayers of the United States get the bill. Now, that's one of a number of problems regarding this project. It's somewhat unprecedented, I believe. This may have happened at some other time in American history, but I do find it particularly ironic today when we had the reading of the Constitution that the effect of passing this bill, if it were to become law, and the President has already said he'll veto it, but if this were to become law, would be to give a foreign corporation the right to take private property from American citizens. I'm not aware of any other time in the history of the Union where we have given a foreign corporation the right to take Americans' private property. And yeah, some people were happy to sell the rights, but many others weren't, including some in Nebraska and some in Texas. It's been quite contentious among landowners who are just having this corporation come. I would like to put in the record a letter from TransCanada. We have blacked out the name of the recipient of the letter, but it is a true copy of a letter to a person who will have their private property taken by eminent domain by a foreign corporation. And the foreign corporation informs them that they will begin proceedings this month, I guess because of the anticipated Republican action, to take their private property away.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, that's a bit ironic, again, on the day we read the Constitution, and also of the party of individual rights for property owners. So that is also of concern. Yes, there will be construction jobs, and you know, I'm the first to admit we need more jobs in America. In fact, I voted against the President's so-called stimulus bill because it didn't invest enough in building infrastructure in this country. Instead, it did a whole bunch of stupid tax cuts because of Larry Summers, a highly acclaimed hack economist. And we didn't put a lot of people back to work. 7% went to infrastructure, that created jobs. 42% went to tax cuts, didn't create jobs. But that's another agenda the Republicans are pursuing, is tax cuts to create jobs. But we won't get into that here today. So yes, that will happen, but there are a lot of other investments we could, and I believe the chairman supports making that will create significant construction and infrastructure jobs. Now, were this just in isolation and it didn't involve the total destruction of the boreal forests of Canada, if I were a Canadian, I'd be pretty upset about that. And perhaps the dirtiest, most environmentally problematic way of extracting fossil fuels from the ground to get these oil sands, the construction jobs might have, might carry the day. But sometimes you have to draw a line. And in this case, we also hear it's going to lead somehow to energy security. Well, that's interesting because the crude is going to come down without paying any to crude tar sand oil or whatever you want to call it. It's going to come down to Texas without paying into the oil spill liability trust fund, creating a potential problem for the future taxpayers of the United States. Go to a refinery in an export zone in Texas, and yeah, it'll be refined, and then it'll be exported. We are exporting millions of gallons of fuel every day. So to somehow say this is going to lead to lower prices at the pump in America, maybe it's lower prices in the pump in China or I don't know where else, Japan or someplace, but it isn't going to be here because the product is ultimately going to be exported. So it's also not going to do anything for our energy security. And at the moment we have kind of a surfeit because of fracking and other things of fuels, and prices are down considerably. So, those are just a few of the problems, and we are, by passing this bill, the House of Representatives will attempt to preempt the executive authority of the President in this matter, because this pipeline crosses an international border. The President has authority, and the State Department has been considering it. And even with the Supreme Court in Nebraska refusing to make a judgment, they didn't uphold the law of the Nebraska legislature. In fact, 4 out of 7 judges, normally a majority most places, said it was unconstitutional, but Nebraska has a peculiarity that if the other 3 judges take a walk, which they did, then even though a majority found it unconstitutional, it's not found unconstitutional, and that's the end of the proceeding. So that's the big news out of Nebraska. They need a little work on their constitution, I think. But so it hasn't received a stamp of approval there. There are still aggrieved landowners in Nebraska who object to the route and who are going to have their private property taken by a foreign corporation. So other than that, it's a great idea. And with that, I would reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I yield to the